boy. I played this many demos during Steam Next Fest. I'm going to be using this review skill right here to rate all of them to see what you should add to your wish list, and I'm going to be basing it off of both demo quality and also scalability. So basically, if a demo was really fun but it felt like I got everything I needed out of it already, then it takes a hit. If a demo was okay but it felt like part of a much bigger, more interesting puzzle, then it gets a boost. Let's do this, nerds. Curse of the Sea Rats. I actually got early access to this one, and I'm glad that I did because this was the meatiest demo that I played. It clocked in at over an hour and a half to scrub through it. The hand-drawn animation is amazing. It reminds me a lot of stuff that comes from the Team 17 catalog, and an interesting twist to this game is that you're able to play with up to 3 other people. I don't know if I've seen that in a Metroidvania before. I dig the piratey music, and there's a lot of fun details in the backgrounds of most scenes. The game sprinkles in humor from time to time to keep it light. Mechanically, it's solid, nothing to complain about, but nothing truly revolutionary either. According to the publisher, the estimated length for the full game is a solid 12 hours. This is one to keep an eye on for Metroidvania fans. I'm giving it a light 4 to start us off. Midnight Fight Express. This game is made by one person, and it caught my attention in the last 2 E3/Summer Game Fest with how raucous its combat seemed, mixing in satisfying hand-to-hand action with ranged options and paying homage to a lot of classic fights from famous movies with some of its encounters. While that last element wasn't present in the demo because it was just a small slice, I can say that this game is shaping up to be as good as how the showcases have made it look. The combat is stellar. You have a skill tree that really opens your options up to keep the fighting fresh. There's a high level of polish in the menuing, a lot of fun customization options, and a focus on pure fun. So far, all 4 levels have felt unique. There's even one where you're on a moving train. I can't wait to see what more is up its sleeve in that department, and the writing is really solid too. Solo development continues to impress me every single day, and this game contributes to that as much as any other. Strong 4 out of 5. Ghost Song's been getting a lot of buzz on the Metroidvania subreddit. It's been in development for a very long time, and I thought the demo was alright. In terms of sound design, atmosphere, and art, the game nails what it wants to do. It's very solemn. You really want to soak it all in. The layering and detail of the backgrounds is great, but actually playing the game never felt that fun to me. In terms of your moveset, the game is close cousins with Metroid, but where I felt free and fluid in Metroid Dread with Samus being incredibly responsive and agile, Dead Suit, Ghost Song's protagonist, is very slow and floaty. The sound effects do sell the weaponry well, but I felt way more constrained in the gameplay than I'd like to be, so the game never hit as well as it could have. Lots of people are high on this, but I'm gonna give it a light 3. Angerfoot made my best game shown at SGF list from a few days ago, and there's a reason why it was so high. This game is fun, and this game is funny. It's pure chaos, pedal to the metal action. You bust down doors, you shoot everything in your sight, you kick explosive barrels at people, you throw your gun in their faces and roundhouse kick them in the schnoz. The levels are tight and focused. You're getting new guns and enemy types constantly. Everything I've seen from the story has been hilarious, and they even play on the concept of opening loot crates, but here you gain these unlockables by completing challenges, and each one is a new shoebox that gives you sick kicks to modify your gameplay, and this is how I actually spelled sick kicks in my script. If this isn't a cry for help, I don't know what is. I think this demo is available outside of Next Fest, so go play it unless you hate fun, I guess. 5 out of 5. Cult of the Lamb might wind up becoming the best game out of this entire list when it releases later this summer, but one thing holding this demo back is that it feels like it just lightly notches the surface. The artwork in this game is just incredible. It's so crisp, the combat is straightforward, but it feels satisfying. I love all the weird demonic imagery and mechanics colliding with this cute animal world, and what interests me the most is the idea of building up this cult, creating a community, sacrificing members to your god, how you can continue to build and grow it. This is a fantastic and wild concept that has so much more to give, and I can't wait for its release in August. It gets a 4 just because the demo was so short. Astronite feels like Gato Robato's slightly duller little brother. It's got a little less charm than this game, the gameplay is a touch less enjoyable, and the pure black and white style doesn't result in quite as fun looking levels, but Gato Robato is a super fun game, so this being a tick worse in most areas doesn't make it out for the count. It still carries the refreshing simplicity of Gato in a genre that feels like it's getting more winding and epic, and especially once you get more abilities, I wouldn't be surprised if it resulted in a pretty fun action experience. I didn't love the boss fight since there was no way to dodge, and sometimes it would launch into an attack that if you didn't guess correctly before it even happened, chances were you'd get hit, but there's still a potential here. Light 3 out of 5. BRIGHTSEEKER seems like it wants to be Hyper Light Drifter so bad, but it just doesn't have the chops for it. Its art design can hold its weight pretty well, but playing the game was a janky experience. I somehow got stuck in the terrain like 18 times in this 15-minute demo. Something's up with the colliders in this game, and no part of actually fighting the enemies felt great. Shooting felt inaccurate, melee felt spammy, and had no hit registration. I see what this game's trying to do, but I don't think it does it very well. 2 out of 5, at least it kind of looks cool. Metal Hellsinger, dude, hell yes. I brought up my love for BPM on this channel a few times, so I love that we're getting another rhythm-based first-person shooter, and this time we're getting one that's a lot more friendly to a wider audience. The music is a bit more dynamic and less repetitive than BPM's from what I've heard, which is especially true since Hellsinger is linear, while BPM is a roguelike, so you wind up hearing the same song every time you started a run. And Hellsinger also actually lets you shoot and do damage when you're off beat, with the benefit of timing your shots and movements correctly being higher damage output, an increase to your combo meter, which builds the music to an epic climax, and of course the satisfaction of blasting a demon with a shotgun right as the music hits in the perfect way. This demo is really well thought out, absolutely addicting, and even features a Returnal style boss to boot. I'm personally not all that hot on metal music, but Metal Hellsinger gets a whopping 5 out of 5. BROTATO is a game that I didn't actually understand at first because all you do in this game is move, everything else is done for you automatically, giving it a real Bloons Tower Defense kind of vibe. For anyone who's been playing Vampire Survivor recently, from my understanding there's a lot of shared DNA here, with BROTATO being slightly more contained in its map. While the actual gameplay is passive, it's fun equipping yourself with powerful weapons, combining, upgrading, and getting more abilities after each wave, and you still need to have spatial awareness to get through the waves of enemies. I came back to this demo a few times over the week. It has a nice wind down sort of vibe, but my question is, what is the main game gonna bring that wasn't also in this demo? I feel like I got my share of fun here, and even if I might be tempted to come back every once in a while, I don't know if this can hold me for long periods of time. Either way though, I had a good time with it. Strong 3 out of 5. Playing CULTIC was the first time that I felt fatigued with the whole boomer shooter resurgence of the last few years. I think it's because I really dig the ones that mix this style and base gameplay with just insane movement and levels, but the more grounded stuff starts feeling really samey after a while. CULTIC has very detailed pixel art, great sound design, and it looks like a very polished version of this style of game, but I didn't feel like I saw anything special coming out of this one. There's really nothing that sets it apart, so light 3, I guess. DEADLINK was the demo that I came back to the most out of this bunch. It has such a fun roguelite loop. It implements the same pick your door, pick your reward system as Hades, and it makes health incredibly hard to come by, so you gotta protect yourself by shooting marked enemies to gain back some of your shield. You can mark enemies by grappling to them, chucking grenades, or using a force blast, all of which are on cooldown, so you really gotta juggle these things on the fly in a chaotic environment and be aggressive to stay alive. The gunplay is punchy. You only have one class available in the demo, but I didn't get sick of it, so I can't wait for the rest of the classes to show up in the full game. I had so much fun with this to the point where I kinda wanna give it a 5, but it's a little bit rough on the technical side right now. It needs to be optimized a little bit better. There were times where it felt like I dropped double-digit frames at once, so a little polish would do this one good, but don't sleep on it. 4 out of 5. GIGABUSTER didn't blow me away with how it played. I can't put my finger on it, but it feels like less than the sum of its parts, but it does feature an amazing graphic novel adjacent look with a lot of cool effects. I wonder if the game will start feeling better with an upgraded arsenal, but for now I don't have much to say about it. Light 3 out of 5. A little to the left is another game that was on my Summer Game Fest favorites list, and this one's exactly how it's being sold as. There's no tutorial or guidance, you just have to contextually figure out how to solve puzzles. A few of them have multiple solutions with more difficult to think of solutions, rewarding you with more stars, and it's just a cozy little puzzle game. There's something very satisfying about the textures of objects and the sounds of you moving stuff around. It's kind of cathartic cleaning up these messes and sorting out drawers and putting the right stickers on your produce. I wasn't sure about how I'd actually feel about playing the game, despite me thinking it seemed pretty cool. If you couldn't tell, I'm a big fan of fast-paced action games, but I had a really relaxing time with A Little to the Left, and this demo's fully sold me on the game now. 4 out of 5. Nine Souls is a game that I've kept my eye on since its crowdfunding campaign started, and I actually played the demo back then, but I played it again now, and I liked it even more the second time. It features very high-res artwork, a mix of Chinese and steampunk aesthetics, which the studio has dubbed as Tao Punk, and the player and enemy actions look smooth as all hell. It's a Metroidvania that has really satisfying core gameplay and a cool spin on parry counters. You can kind of store them and use them at will, sometimes on multiple enemies, and if you pick a really good time to do it, you can get 2 instances of damage off. It's really cool. The story has me curious, and there's a lot of polish on this one. I think it's up there with Crowsworn as one of the most promising upcoming Metroidvanias. It gets a 5, and this is also a non-NextFest exclusive demo, so go try it out. How to Say Goodbye is another stylish puzzle game which this time focuses on grief and loss. Visually and thematically, it reminds me of elements of Pete Docter's recent stuff at Pixar, and the crisscrossing assembly line gameplay is capable of being very thoughtful even when it's fairly straightforward. I think this game is capable of tugging at the heartstrings a little bit, and I'm interested to see if they'll be able to create more complicated puzzles without it becoming too brain melting. It feels like this concept could go too complex if it isn't kept in check, but that's just speculation. From what I've played, really solid experience. 4 out of 5. SKER Ritual is a Call of Duty Zombies type game which lets you play solo or with others. You buy gear and upgrades, you can open up doors to access new parts of the map. The one run I played wasn't as stressful as Zombies can feel, and I'll admit this type of game isn't necessarily my jam, especially alone, but for what it is, it seemed pretty solid. At the very least, the gunplay is stellar, and the map seemed pretty cool, so 3 out of 5. LOOPMANCER has some really dumb dialogue and line deliveries. I actually started skipping the cutscenes pretty quickly, and there are a lot of cutscenes, mind you, but the actual gameplay was pretty fun. You have a lot of tools at your disposal already: mines, Hadoukens, katanas, and SMGs. Exploring the map is really fluid, especially with your grapple, and I think the idea of placing a bunch of unlockables through a level that you can just dump however much currency into to work towards permanent unlocks is a nice way to go about meta progression in a roguelite. This game seems like dumb fun, emphasis on both of those words, but I'm interested to see how well it can build off of this once you start upgrading and exploring new levels. 3 out of 5. MADVILLE Plus is a slightly more active version of BROTATO. You're actually shooting stuff with similar wave-based progression, but it looks rusty. It also doesn't play all that great, and the upgrades aren't nearly as bonkers. I don't really see much of a reason to try this one out, so 1 out of 5. Melatonin is a really great concept with a really great visual style and a few really great moments in the demo, but my biggest concern is whether it can be more involved and complex later on. It's a rhythm game where you dream about a bunch of ideas and activities and match movements to the rhythms, so pizzas shoot out at you and you gotta gobble them up, or you shoot little robots at an arcade, or you buy a bunch of stuff at a store, all to the pace of a metronome. I think this is a really cool take on the rhythm genre, and I like what I've seen and played, but it does feel a little bit too simple. There are a lot of long pauses where you wait for something to happen, the tempo is very slow, you never have to multitask or do anything all that fast, most actions have a lot of room to breathe, and gameplay wise that's not as engaging, and I'm hoping that later stages make me work just a little bit more even with this sleepy, relaxed vibe. All things considered though, I like a lot of what this game's putting down, so it gets a 4 out of 5. Twin Stick is sort of the opposite of Melatonin. It's a rhythm game that off the bat forces you to multitask by putting beat markers on 2 planes side by side that you go back and forth between in a much more engaging rhythm loop, but it lacks any fun packaging or artwork. You just kind of hit these dotted lines on beat and that's it. No fun look, no interesting gimmick like some of my other favorite rhythm games, just a cool concept left on an island. I had fun with this, but I don't know if I'll ever go back to it. Light 3. SIGNALIS is an isometric pixelated space horror game that commits to its aesthetic from the very menu screen. There's shadowy creatures trying to kill you as you explore your surroundings, ammo is scarce, gunplay isn't the best, but that's really not the focus. What this game nails is a sense of discovery and survival in a small, claustrophobic setting. There's a radio that you can tune on your menu to receive secret Morse code messages, you sometimes need to pay close attention to your inventory to solve puzzles, and you gotta look everywhere to get all the items you might need to access the next area. It's another game that isn't necessarily my cup of tea in the long run, but there will be an audience for this, I'm sure, and I think it'll cater to them nicely. Strong 3 out of 5. MOONSCARS is exactly what I want while I wait for a Blasphemous sequel. There's a lot of great sprite work here, parry counters are ridiculously powerful, platforming is actually really fluid, and there's surprises that make me very interested about the lore of this world. It's dark, gritty, and perfect for somebody who thinks Blasphemous is one of the better Metroidvanias out there. 4 out of 5. Maybe I'm stupid, but I didn't see the point of NAIAD. I got a very long way into the demo, and all I was doing was moving from level to level and occasionally ducking under a log or something. The look of this game is really unique, and I think you're supposed to be leading these little sea creatures places by singing. Maybe there's actual objectives with that concept later on, but I was playing for over 20 minutes and quite literally nothing had happened, even though I'd gone through dozens of short levels, so I just left it. I'll give it a 2 for the look and the fact that maybe there was an actual point and I missed it, but there's such a thing as too passive and relaxing, and I feel like NAIAD is just that. Here's a big one that I don't see many people talking about, Fashion Police Squad. I'm genuinely shocked about how fun and inspired this game is. The concept here is that you're the fashion police, so your enemies are people with dull or ill-fitting suits, overly flashy colors, and baggy pants. Each type of enemy is dealt with a different weapon or weapon ability. You shoot color at gray suits, zap color away from scootering hippies, and shoot staples at people with baggy clothes. You also have a super ability that lets you literally go around slapping fashion sense into people, and a whip that doubles as a grapple for some surprisingly fun traversal. Alleyways are well designed with little secrets to reach, and the boss actually makes little minion companions a welcome addition to the fight. I have a whole video about how much I hate ads or additional enemies and boss fights, but here not only does the boss use them as a shield at one point so you gotta switch out your weapon, but he's a businessman, so at one point he literally goes, "I'm so sorry, I gotta take this call, have some refreshments and my men will keep you company." So you get little health pickup cocktails and enemies flock in while this giant kingpin looking dude is waddling around while on the phone. Every few minutes it felt like this game is getting better and better, and I'm very excited for the full release. 5 out of 5. Alright, we're near the end here and there's a few more that I want to go in depth with, but this is getting a little bit long, so I'm gonna lightning round a few of these. Never Awake is a shmup that's not very difficult, which is sort of crippling to this particular genre. It's not horrible, but it wasn't offering much, and I'm not a fan of this particular case of 3D models in a 2D game. QUETZAL has really fun platforming sections, there's no fat in this demo, you're right in there, it feels like the perfect amount of challenge, movement feels just right, it's shaping up to be a great addition to the puzzle platforming genre. I like elements of QuiToday's art style, and I like the finisher animations, and that's about it. As far as beat 'em ups go, this one feels unexciting, mashy, and unfun. It was another demo that I just stopped playing after a bit because it was not giving me anything to keep going. Celica is a game that both my brother and one of my friends said that they dug quite a bit, but to me it was another boomer shooter with a bit more of an interesting setting and more exciting gameplay than CULTIC, but not much else setting it apart. It also ran horribly for me. It feels like it needs a lot more work in that department. SKELLIES Ain't Scary takes the Gungeon formula and says, what if you couldn't tell what was going on? Like Gata Roboto, Astronite, and Downwell, this game is entirely black and white, but enemies are rudimentary in design and leave behind remnants. On top of which you have weird little grass patches and stuff to fill in the environment, and that means that half the time you can't tell if something is a live enemy or not. Most of my deaths were me just thinking that I'd cleared a room, but something was actually still alive. It's a light version of Gungeon with no visual clarity. Swordship ship is one of the most unique games on here. You travel at high speeds, pick up packages, and deposit them all while being attacked by different machines. You can't fight back directly, so you gotta dodge, dive underground, and get the machines to take each other out while finding time to complete your tasks. It's a cool concept with great menuing to boot. And the last game in the lightning round, Beneath ORESA. This is the only card game on here, and I'm not much of a card player myself, but I like the 2D Borderlands look and the underground adventure setup. There's interesting inter-battle upgrades to make, and the card system seemed pretty fun, and I say seemed because I never actually got a tutorial, so I was just winging it. I still managed to enjoy myself. I can't give it a definitive great score because I truly don't know how well it was balanced or how well these systems actually worked, because I don't know it or the entire genre well enough to make those calls, so it gets a 3, but if you're more into these games than me, then I feel like you might find something special here. The last two demos that I wanted to talk about are There Is No Light and The Cub. The first was on my list of most anticipated indies of this year, and admittedly the demo wasn't as great as I was hoping, but that's mainly because it hadn't gotten into the meat and potatoes just yet. The early combat is fine enough, but I'm excited to see how these crazy powers with incredible effects from the trailers are going to feel to actually use. There's an interesting story at play here that's delivered well, and I'm hoping to see more of these creepy pixel art cutscenes as the game continues because they're pretty cool. The demo also showed off a new approach to a healing system which requires you to be aggressive, so you know I love that, but we were too early on, it felt like, for anything to wow me just yet. I'm still holding out hope that this game is going to deliver in spades though, 3 out of 5. And finally, The Cub. This game showed at one of the SGF showcases. It might have been Tribeca, and I thought it looked interesting but not necessarily good enough to be on my top 10 list. After playing it though, my opinion on it is a lot more positive. The apocalyptic setting and the story revolving around this mutant kid on the run work together really well. The platforming isn't snappy or anything, but it does that thing that I really love where stuff that you're climbing and moving through is all stuff that makes sense in the world. It's not just like floating platforms, it's airplane wings and train cars that are hanging off of cliffs, and through it all you get this radio station type background music and narration. Sometimes it's somebody telling a story that's unrelated to what's happening directly on screen, sometimes it's sampling baby sounds to make a musical backdrop. Time will tell if this winds up being inspired or annoying, but at the very least it's unique. The Cub has a lot more to offer than I initially thought, and I think it could find a decent audience when it releases. 4 out of 5. Well, that was a lot of demos, and a lot of talking about demos, and a lot of trying not to overlap what I'm saying about things that definitely will overlap when you're talking about this many demos, so I'm gonna take a nap. The next couple of videos aren't gonna be these big list type things that I like doing from time to time because I just did 2 of them in a row, but hopefully you guys like seeing these every once in a while. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you're new here, subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.